This episode of The Watch is brought to you by Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate has been searching the globe for flavors that pair perfectly with coffee. So when they heard the new season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus, was set in Thailand, they were inspired to brew up 2 new flavored creamers, Thai iced coffee and pina colada flavored creamers. They're available for a short time only, so for the love of coffee, go try them now.
I need support staff to clear the room. Stand up and walk now.
Hello and welcome to The Watch. My name is Chris Ryan. I am an editor at TheRinger.com. And joining me in the studio, foiled again by cashew cheese, it's Andy Greenwald!
I'm glad you mentioned the cashew cheese. I would also like to say, Chris, before we get into this wonderful recording, where we'll be talking about television shows.
Yeah.
Paradise, The Pitt.
Sorry, what? We're very far away.
What I wanted to say was, for people who aren't watching us on video, we are sitting like Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale in the original Tim Burton Batman at the dinner scene. You are very far from me.
But who's who here in this scenario?
I'm always Vicky Vale.
Greenwald, great to see you, man. It's you're hearing this on Thursday in the early evening on the West Coast or later at night on the East Coast because we wanted to be able to talk about a pretty big new episode of The Pitt that would just have gone up on Thursday. Today we're also going to talk about just the phenomenon, the rocket ship, the EMP blast that is Paradise.
I'm really glad we stuck with it.
I'm really glad we stuck with it as well. We had gotten a lot of messages being like, hey, it seems like you guys quit this show, episode 7. And I got to say, the streets were right. The streets were right. We're going to talk about the end of the first season of Paradise, but how are you?
I'm good. I also wanted to, I didn't run this by CT and Kaya beforehand, but I did want to debut something new for the video listeners and viewers, where if you say something I disagree with, I'm just going to hold up a sign that says false, because I feel like that's the best way to show dissent.
That's right.
Do you think it's going to work?
You didn't watch. You don't know how effective the protests were last night.
Oh, did it work? Are we good?
Hey, he's become a moderate.
We should say to our listeners that we are entering a new phase of our relationship.
It's not new. You haven't read the news in 3 years. You keep saying here's my new plan is I'm not going to read the news. And I'm like, hey, did you see what happened?
Well, because you can't quit telling me. That's the thing.
Yeah, I don't have kids. I want to know. I want to know.
You want to know how it's going to go out?
Yeah.
When the lights go off?
Yeah. Also, I have lots more free time to fill. I don't have to worry about is this kid got to get to soccer? It's no, I'll read The Guardian.
It's cute you think my kids play soccer, but do you...
They are in Trump's America.
That's true. They better get moving.
Yeah.
No, soccer's a European game.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Come on.
That's right. You wanted to chat briefly about the late Gene Hackman.
Oh, I just felt like so generally I would give ourselves, I think generally we do a pretty good job. We do a fine job on this podcast. I do think that due to my massive, smothering, open head Adam Scott in Severance in the kitchen surgery state of jet lag the other day, that I did just completely forget the 4 things I wanted to talk to you about regarding the Oscars.
I thought you may have missed it because you don't look at the news.
I didn't know the Oscars were on?
Yeah.
I did want to, there's a couple things. It's like a nesting doll of points here. One was just the In Memoriam segment in general.
Number 1, yeah.
And some...
I would like to can I just interrupt you briefly?
I wanted to talk about.
I wanted to make an apology on behalf of The Watch, on behalf of CT and Kaya, who both, they don't deserve to be tarred with the same brush as us. Mm-hmm. But Andy and I were talking about the memoriam.
This is one of my nesting dolls.
And we were like, what is with this music?
This music sucks.
Yeah, and
Who
I was
wrote
just
this?
I was more saying I think I know this song, but I don't think it's appropriately it's you want to have darkness, but at the end you're but we're all going to heaven. It's uplift.
Yeah, right.
And the Requiem that they were playing during the In Memoriam segment on the Oscars, I thought was just a little brooding.
It's not one of your top 5 Requiems.
So on behalf of Andy and I would like to apologize to the estate of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Do you think it's in the public domain at this point?
Amadeus, that's a real Philly pronunciation of it.
Amadeus! Amadeus, get your water ice.
Yeah, I used to get my bread from Salieri. So my bad. We dismissed probably one of Mozart's.
Wolfgang Amoroso Mozart.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
That one's probably high up on the This Is Mozart playlist on Spotify.
It's probably top 10. Shout out to the Watch Ombudswoman, Amanda Dobbins,
Yes,
for being first on the parapets.
We can count on her
to let us know when we're wrong. But yeah, so the point remains that I thought it was a little over the top for an in memoriam. An in memoriam that I also wanted to say was, and this is a weird way to phrase it, the most stacked ever.
I know.
It was devastating.
I think it's more also that we are now seeing people that we grew up watching pass away, which is a very sad fact of life. But like, I think it's only going to get more uncanny as we're like watching people that I was like, damn.
I knew him.
Yeah, I saw many of your films in the theater from 17 to 37. Yeah.
Oh, it's true. Do you know what else does that to you? When I was in London, I went to see a museum exhibition, really good, at the National Portrait Gallery, and it was of the photography from the magazine The Face.
Oh, God.
So it was in the August halls of London's National Portrait Gallery, and it was like, Justine Frischmann, Elastica, 1996. And everyone's like, I see. How fascinating. It was really cool, but it was also like we were hanging out looking at these magazines, and now it's in a museum. But so totally stacked. I thought it was I thought it was pretty disappointing that there wasn't more for David Lynch. I thought
it was sad.
The sweetest thing about
I think they could have done a David Lynch tribute. But in reality, like, I mean, in as an alternative to like the Bond thing.
I was going to say, if two major figures of culture died, David Lynch and apparently James Bond.
Well, he did die.
James, don't spoil that bad movie.
That's from 3 years ago now.
Also, boy, in a way, that title of that movie was really like kind of a scold.
Yes.
It was No Time to Die, and he was just like.
So you never saw that one?
I did see it.
Oh, okay.
I saw it on an aeroplane.
Yeah.
Just as Carrie, Masters of the Air, Fukunaga intended, right? He directed that, right?
He did direct it.
Terrific.
Why did you do air quotes like they weren't really Masters of the Air?
No, because didn't he also direct some of that series?
He directed the first 4 or 5.
But they didn't want to talk about that.
That's Big Apple didn't want you to know about that. That's why they said directed by Carrie Fukunaga at the end of every one.
This is too many nesting dolls.
Okay.
I did think that the sweetest tribute to David Lynch was that Isabella Rossellini brought Laura Dern as her date and wore Blue Velvet. That was beautiful. All of this was to say, the Gene Hackman news really was a gut punch, not because the passing away of a 95-year-old actor is necessarily that. I mean, the news that's come out since is pretty shocking and bizarre and confusing, but he had retired 20 years ago. And so the day was inevitably coming. But I just wanted to take a moment on the microphone to say, like, I think he's the greatest American actor.
There you go. Way to stick your neck out.
I thank you. Have other people in the news said something similar, or am I really on the front edge here of culture?
You zagged.
No, it reminded me of, remember a few years ago we did a thing where we were just, I don't know, when I say we did a thing, I sometimes can't tell if this is a podcast or just our life, but we were talking about how when like the iconic lists of like the greatest rock bands, it's almost always British bands, and then it's like, well, what's the iconic greatest American rock band? And we kind of made a case for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Oh yeah, we did do that.
That's kind of the Gene Hackman is the greatest American actor analogy for me.
You know what? That's a great correlation. Yeah.
So completely
or comparison
of a cultural moment in like, you know, in terms of where he studied, who he worked with, but completely sui generis and so absolutely incontrovertibly him always. And just unique from when he came on screen as a performer and with his abilities to do comedy and drama and menace and heart, but throughout his entire career, just looking at his filmography. And I remember when, I mean, the time that I was casting something and I was trying to cast a male lead, looking for someone who could be physical, but also funny. And we don't make actors like this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he comes from a generation of actors like that, Duvall, Pacino, Hoffman, De Niro era, Keitel, sort of towards the later end of it, where the character actors were the stars.
Yes.
And all those guys have the ability to be incredibly immersive or chameleonic and disappear into costume or accent or whatever. Like, there is a quality about them that is always like, you know, you can turn the dial on Hackman and have him be 4th or 5th down the call sheet like he is in Reds, or carrying the entire film like he does in Night Moves or whatever.
Conversation.
I mean, yeah, or he can come in and do 4 or 5 scenes in Crimson Tide and blow it out of the water, almost literally.
Or he can just be incredibly funny and in on the joke in the birdcage.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
his Lex Luthor, is his Lex Luthor underrated or properly rated? Because he wouldn't shave his head.
It's been a while since I've seen the Donner ones, but like I think that history has really smiled upon that performance.
Yeah, in those movies, truly. So you mentioned it. I think that my favorite Hackman is probably Night Moves, which is a 1975 mystery.
Yeah, Arthur Penn. Kind of in the vein of the kind of stuff we like to read, the
Totally.
Ross McDonald, John D. McDonald kind of stuff.
He plays a guy named Harry Call who wears a sick leather jacket and drives around LA and then gets hired to investigate something that takes him to the Florida Keys.
Yeah.
So it's like we incepted this idea years before we were born. And it's real swampy and real grimy. And he's so good because he walks into a room and other characters are kind of afraid of him. This character used to be a football player.
Yeah, he's played for the Rams.
He has size. But in the first 10 minutes of the movie, he is also cuckolded. And he looks so sad about it. There just aren't actors who can do that wide range of a performance.
Yeah, I grew up with the 80s and 90s performances. So in my introduction to him was kind of cranky old man, like Firm and Unforgiven.
The Firm is top 5, maybe.
Horny Hackman.
Horny.
That's a big part about The Firm.
It's true.
Watchables is we talked about Horny Hackman.
It's just who he
and then
was.
I went back and saw him in Crimson Tide, or not Night Moves and French Connection. Scarecrow. But he was always kind of a cranky old man, even in his younger days.
Bonnie and Clyde.
Mm-hmm.
Super cranky.
Yeah.
I think also we talk about like movie star eras, the fact that he could be the lead in The Conversation, which is a masterpiece, and then be in the 90s version of The Conversation, Enemy of the State, and still make sense in that world. And then we did the rewatchables on Tenenbaums.
We did the Royal Tenenbaums one.
Hackman doing Tenenbaums and apparently hating it, but giving one of the greatest performances of his career and maybe the perfect coda to his career. And then like a year later doing Welcome to Mooseport with Ray Romano and then piecing out. It's kind of like the way I won't accept that the Chiefs scored 22 points in the Super Bowl. Like that was a 40-6 game.
Yeah.
So
you think that Tenenbaums was his last movie?
Yes, Tenenbaums was his last movie, and Welcome to Mooseport was Mahomes throwing 2 TDs against the backups in garbage time. Did you think I was going to be able to bring it back to the Super Bowl? Because I feel like our listeners did.
Do you want to get into Paradise and the Pit?
Yeah, how do you want to do this? 2 shows that begin with P. That's one way we could do it.
I want to talk about Paradise.
Okay.
Because I'll admit that after like the second or third episode, I was like, this was a fun experiment for us.
Yeah, what did we say? We were like, it's actually
it was
bad,
bad, and then
yeah.
it went bad. And I think there was something. I was having an allergic reaction to the backlottiness of it, which I know is intentional given we're going to spoil Paradise, by the way, if you haven't watched it. I highly recommend you do watch it, though. And I highly recommend that even if you've only watched the first episode or very little of it, that you watch the 7th episode.
And I think, I mean, people don't like it, especially creators don't like it when we say things like this, but like if you are pressed for time, I think it's okay. You can jump ahead. The show has been renewed. You're fine. You may miss some of the deep flashbacks about Agent Billy, but I think you'll be fine.
Yes, there is like a very soft middle to the first season that then gets really, 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 really fun, and in 7, excellent. So 7 is called The Day. It is essentially, wouldn't necessarily call it a real time, but it feels real time account of the hours before the evacuation of the White House and the arrival at the Colorado bunker that Samantha Redmond, played by Julianne Nicholson, has
AKA Sinatra,
has built for the sort of the liberal elites. Well, I don't know if they're libs, but like it's like the elites of Washington, the essential people who are going to continue or restart society in this underground bunker in Colorado.
I would say more that it seems like it's run by like a billionaire oligarch class, which is weird.
Yeah, it just didn't ring true.
No.
And, for the majority of the season, you're aware that some sort of catastrophe has taken place.
And that the world is presumed.
Yeah, it's
ruined.
that the world outside of the bunker is ruined, right? On the flashbacks to the flight that we have seen so far, I believe in the first episode, maybe at the end we get a glimpse of it. We know that there is some sort of explosion because I think we see the white light of an explosion. And we know that Xavier Collins, who is Sterling K. Brown's Secret Service agent, who is the protagonist of the show, is very mad at the president, James Marsden, a.k.a. Cal, a.k.a. Wildcat.
We should have more AKAs in our lives.
I mean, I got plenty. You just don't know about them.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Like when you're walking around the Ringer office, what do they say? Who's moving?
I don't know.
Spark plug.
We find out that the events that led these people to the Colorado bunker were a volcano exploded in the Antarctic.
How quickly did you Google, are there really volcanoes in the Arctic?
My attitude about these kinds of things is very similar to my attitude about flying in a plane, which is like, there's very little about it I can control. Like I can recycle.
This is why you're healthy.
I can recycle, but there is a certain,
Do you think that's helping right now? Your Yoplait containers going in the blue?
That's how I responded to Trump. Sorting my trash.
This will show him. Good job.
Sir, that is compostable.
This is an act of resistance.
Yeah.
Good job.
I paid $13 for these eggs, and they will go in my compost.
So in a way, you're just investing.
And so there's a volcano in Antarctica causing a 300-foot wave. Take that 100-foot wave.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder what that was like in Nazaré.
To come out of the southern hemisphere traveling at 600 miles per hour, which leads to, it's preceded by an awesome sonic boom, which I did not know waves of that size produced. And I would describe in a style, Glenn Ficarra and John Requa directed this. They directed or several episodes of the first season.
I think only the first
and the last two.
The first two and the last and the last two. Yeah,
yes.
They did 2 blocks.
So these two guys have actually put together like a very solid, very entertaining CV of stuff that they've directed. Crazy Stupid Love, Focus. You know, like they are very sure hands. I would not have imagined that they would be the first choice for a bite your nails thriller, you know, like this. But that is essentially what you get, which is like this countdown clock of the very last moment that the people in the White House can get out of the White House, get onto planes, fly to Colorado. They are trying to decide to what extent they need to notify the American public and the world public about what's coming. Obviously, some people around the world are starting to get that sense because large swaths of it are being destroyed hour by hour. And
we start to learn about it due to the breakdown of decorum on cable news.
Yes. Yes.
That's...
And a lot of the TV news stuff is very Cloverfield.
Yeah.
It's like they are communicating a lot of exposition by doing these kind of stand-up shots. And there's a lot of like verite kind. It's very, very cool the way they kind of communicate a lot of this information.
I also did want to like just fact check. Like there is not fact check, but maybe just question. There's the one reporter for the CNN analog.
Yes,
and
who's just like I'm going to stay doing a panel talk.
No, not that guy. The woman who's just like, I am coming to you live from Jakarta, Indonesia.
Yeah.
Minutes before a 300-foot tsunami wave arrives, and he's like, should you be there? And she's like, don't worry. I've chosen to do my report from a balcony of a skyscraper. I was like, oh,
yeah,
should be fine. Should be fine. Nice view of the harbor.
Doesn't work out for her.
No.
Doesn't work out really for anyone. I would say that the great thing about this episode, among just the fact that it is a adrenaline rush and it's so well done, is the sincerity with which they're treating the subject matter, which is pretty, obviously sensational. They're like, no, we're going to take this deadly, deadly seriously and very emo. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, every time you're like, we're twisted out. I'm wrung out. Like, there's nowhere else for this to go. They got to get on the plane and they got to go. They're like, what if we also had to deal with this? Mm-hmm. And what if we also had to deal with Xavier Collins' wife is stranded in Atlanta, but can she get from Hartsfield Airport to an Air Force base in like the amount of time that she needs to get there to get evacuated.
Anyone who has ever remotely aided a spouse navigating an airport really felt like that was more gripping.
When he's like, steal a car if you have to.
I feel like you've said that to Phoebe on occasion.
I don't know, man. This was a real lesson to me that like not to give up on shows, but B, that certain episodes can just be so head and shoulders above everything else that it almost, I don't want to say like redeems, like I'm giving it like, I'm like, oh, you've been redeemed, but it was like, this is incredible television.
It was a really, really good episode of a show that also, even within this episode, stayed true to its bona fides, which is that it is batshit insane.
Yes.
I feel like any conversation about Paradise must, as a caveat, the way they describe the side effects of drugs in commercials, say that it is cuckoo birds.
Yeah, it may cause vertigo.
Seizures. Yeah. Like, it is so crazy. And I come here, though, not to bury it for that, but to celebrate it. Because, Chris, we used to be a nation of many things, laws, but also broadcast television. Mm-hmm. And broadcast television, and we forget this through the haze of Netflix fees and things, that broadcast TV, even the things we celebrated, really, 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 really used to go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it in very, very broad, sometimes comical ways. And I don't know why this is the first example that came to my mind. It's 40 years old, but like L.A. Law, which was the prestige drama of the 80s in a lot of ways, along with St. Elsewhere and Hill Street Blues.
Eikenberry, man.
But what's that?
Eikenberry. Jill Eikenberry.
Yes. So you just name a character. You like stump the Schwab. It's like naming actors on L.A. Law. Okay, Michael Tucker.
Hamlin, let's go.
A. Martinez. Are we just going to do this? Who is the guy? Benny? Is Benny
That's
Benny
Corbin Burnson, right?
No. Benny wasn't there.
That's
like
Arnie. He was Arnie, right?
Yeah, Arnie. No, there was the special needs guy that worked in the office, played by the guy who was the villain in Darkman. I think his name was Benny.
Oh, okay.
Oh, see, I won, but winning feels terrible because you just look at me like I'm crazy.
Okay, Darkman.
Anyway, on LA Law, when there was the Diana Muldaur played like Rosalind, who was like the badass supervillain of The Office for one season, and then she walked into an empty elevator shaft.
Oh yeah, they were like, your contract's up. Guess what?
But they were also like, our writer's room goes to 11.
Yeah.
And we will see what happens, but we are not here to win awards or even be streaming or available on video. We are here to fucking go for it week after week.
Yes.
And Paradise has that baked into its insane DNA. And I really, really respect it. And sometimes when it hits hard, like it does with this episode, where they were like, okay, in these 46 minutes, we are going to end life on Earth and do a TikTok of not in the TikTok in the modern sense, but like in a reported story kind of way of what it would be like for these people in this room.
Yeah.
And have moments of mawkishness or unreality, like when President Cal takes a moment to talk to the guy sweeping up outside the Oval Office. But what that gets us are these moments of sincerity, then the moments of hysteria. And to the show's credit, it doesn't make anyone look particularly heroic, which I think is maybe that's the most modern thing about it.
That's what I really liked about it. You mentioned the hysteria. So my favorite part of the episode is when the president he's recorded an address that is very like
stiff upper lip.
May God bless us, and hopefully tomorrow we'll begin to recover, and we'll be there, America shining bright.
Yeah.
And then he decides to take the tie off, both literally and sort of linguistically.
Where it's Cal, so first he ties one on a little bit, then he
has
takes
a drink,
the tie off.
and then he's like, I need a cup of coffee, which is the best. It's just kind of like the legal speedball.
Yeah, it's the adult speedball.
He sits down and addresses the globe and says, we're fucking dead. We are dead. But before that, when he makes this decision and it's obvious to his immediate circle that he is going to now tell the truth about the imminent destruction of the world, Xavier's like, weapons hot, man, because it's about to get steamy up in the Oval.
Yeah.
Because he knows as soon as everybody figures out the world is ending and this guy has actually got a place to go.
Yeah.
I want on that plane.
Yeah.
And it's going to get pretty ugly inside the Oval. So like the Secret Service agents are then asked to defend the president and in some cases shoot civilians who are trying to get on this transport that's called the Versailles Group, you know, of people who are like going to be transported and restart society. And that's when shit hits the fan. And it is pretty nuts. And then even one of the Secret Service agents isn't invited.
Yeah.
No, your name's not on the list, dog.
I kind of
and it's like you have to guard the White House. And I'm like, from a wave? Why?
Did that give you flashbacks to like trying to see the MIA secret show or something in 2003? Like the Fader put this on.
I work at the Fader. Come on.
I gotta be on the list.
Yeah. I was at the Fader fort.
you were guarding the Fader fort.
That's right.
Even after a South by Southwest ended. No, I think it's also when you have a, if you'll allow it, apologies to the deceased, a tidal wave of a story show like this. Sometimes it just sweeps past really good ideas, but just by sweeping past them, it pays them some attention. What I mean is like, it's what you just said, that like baked into this insane tempo of an episode, the idea that like other things, other end of the world type stories or apocalyptic stories try to at least showcase the dignity in continuing to do your job or sweep up or guard even after, you know, all hope is lost.
Or even if it's a post-apocalyptic story and it's like the real evil came from within.
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, that's the breakdown, the evil that men do, the Hobbesian piece, you know? But this is like, it's already bad in the room before the wave even hits.
Yeah, and what dignity is there because you're dying anyway?
Yeah.
And I sort of appreciated that aspect of it. And so that episode was incredibly strong.
I have a couple more notes to just pass along before we get to the finale.
Okay, because then it gets real weird.
Okay. In this episode, Xavier spends most of it texting his wife during the end of the world, which I get. You want to make sure she gets to the airport. But I was thinking about texting with you if the world was going to end.
Well, first of all, you'd be informing me.
Well, I'd be like, guess what? Lioness is not coming back.
Some news, colon.
Yeah. But then I just feel like you would be sending me like, heard this new 90s-esque indie jam.
I'd be like, okay, but did you see this on Stereo Gum? This band's pretty good.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, yes, I've been listening to them for years and not telling you about them.
Lorelei. It's really hitting right now.
That's a good record. I would do that. I would also, you'd see the dots and you'd be like, I bet my friend is composing his thoughts about a life well lived together in the trenches of podcasting and media. And I was just looking for the right Palpatine gif. just to make you
somehow Greenwald has survived.
Just to make you lull one last time.
The only other thing was, I can't remember which character says this, but I think it's either the president. I think it's the president who says a tsunami moves fast, but fear moves faster.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I don't care. If it was a tsunami, I would just be, that's my number one.
You wouldn't worry about
concern.
fear.
Yeah. Fear is like...
fear's coming.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I think people are allowed to be afraid. I think people should be allowed to freak out.
Especially in low-lying areas.
Yes. Anything else on episode 7?
No.
Would you say contender for episode of the year? Well, I mean, how can you say? It's only March.
It's only March.
Yeah.
I think that it is... I mean, and this is just part of the larger conversation about the show. I really, really like how hard the show goes. You know, that it's just like an episode like this, in the current way that we seem to understand how to make television in this country, would either be the first episode or the last episode of the 3rd season.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, fuck it, we got more. And so that you have an episode this crazy, and then the powers that be, in this case, Dan Fogelman, is like, perfect. I've now cleared the room, cleared the air, and cleared most of the earth so I can tell the story that motivates me most. The surprising love story between a gruff foreman and a Senegalese worker dying of black lung.
Yeah.
Like, great. Let's fucking go. Let's keep going. This show is so free of the pomposity and the portentousness of so much prestige TV of the last few years.
Yeah.
If you compare this to Zero Day, which is also ostensibly about a catastrophe in this country with a focus on the highest chambers of power.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you ever finish Zero Day?
No, I've not. Have you finished it?
I read the recaps for the rest of it. I watched 3.5 of them, and then I read the recaps.
Does it get real smart? It's get real good.
Yeah, it gets so much smarter.
Oh my God, the show's so smart. Oh, I love it. Oh, you're so smart, Zero Day. You really, it's like reading the op-ed pages of the failing New York Times. It's awesome. But it's apples and oranges, except I can't do this metaphor, except the oranges are rancid. I don't know.
The fact that they spend the finale mostly concentrating on a character who had been in the very, very, very far background.
It's so pleased with itself. Yeah.
And that he is not only the person who he is the attempted assassin of Cal the first time.
Yep.
That then he is sent to a Colorado supermax prison.
Yes, he was.
Just a bit of kismet because he's like, who would have thunk it? I wind up in supermax. And if I can just orchestrate my own escape.
It's great, he says.
I'm right nearby the excavation site, the site of the town.
Yep.
And it's amazing. It's like one of the great like little TV tropes. Actually, I don't even know if it's a TV trope. It's just one of the funniest things is when this guy who's, what's his name?
Trent.
He has been posing as the librarian in this town. Fake Trent.
Mm-hmm.
False Trent is even better.
That's what it says on Wikipedia. False Trent. Oh, man.
He kidnaps Xavier and he's like, finally, I get to unburden myself with the truth about what I've done.
Yes.
And then just tells him his entire life story.
Well, he's concussed.
Yeah. And I was just like, this is so great. This is awesome.
Do you think this is better or worse than current NFL concussion protocols? Like when they go in the blue tent and false Trent is there to explain the plot of Paradise to you. And if you could follow
and
half
AJ
of it.
Brown is like, damn.
Like, oh, that's really riveting. You're like back in the game.
The end of this episode, the end of this season, I guess it's worth noting that there is a woman named Jane who people remember from from the beginning part of the season, who over the course is starts out as a Secret Service agent who is Xavier's protege, and Billy's lover. And over the course of the season, it's revealed that she is not only a killer, like a hitman, more or less, or an assassin, but that she is unwell. That she seems to have like a kind of Hannibal Lecter thing going, or not even. I wouldn't even.
She's a little sociopathic. And she is, what did they used to say about Allen Iverson? Like 150 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah,
she's like 105 pounds soaking wet, but the
she's
most brutal killer.
Dead eye shot, because at the end of the episode, you guys do or don't care. Like basically over the entire second half of the season, it's kind of a lost, Jack versus Locke kind of thing, where it's like Xavier and his people and some of the Secret Service agents, and they get all the guns.
Yeah.
And then Samantha and the Brainiacs and the billionaires. So I like calling her by her given name.
Okay, but you're going to confuse people. They're going to fail concussion protocols.
Sinatra. And it seems like Xavier has the upper hand until Sinatra, who's been swearing that she's not a monster the entire season.
It's also just like this show is
threatens to kill his daughter.
It's unstoppable. It's like it has some sort of food poisoning. It just keeps coming out of it. And so the character who is behaving like a Bond villain says, "Oh, maybe I am a Bond villain." Like, okay, then let's move on.
Yes.
That's just who you are for the purposes of the show.
And so it seems like Xavier, he's got his daughter has been kidnapped by Sinatra. She's threatening to kill Presley, and is like, so you're going to do my bidding and yada, yada. And then Jane goes rogue and is like, no, I am going to kill Presley. She's the one who's been guarding. She said she did kill her.
Xavier's getting girls' night.
He's getting real mad. But then Jane pops into the room and shoots Sinatra in the one part of the sternum that doesn't kill you.
That is remarkable. She's bleeding out, but not all the way.
That would make a cool YouTube video. Me and Angie shoot each other right here. See who lives long.
But what if it was narrated with that TikTok voice? It's like, I took my two best friends to a room and I shot them both in the sternum to see how quickly they wouldn't die. I shot Chris first and he seems to be in discomfort and the blood is bubbling around his mouth and neck and he cannot speak, but he's promised me that he'll survive. My children only watch content with that voice.
It ends with...
Wait, like also you're like, Xavier gets real mad. He shoots two dudes point blank in the forehead, but I guess everyone has different definitions of anger.
Yeah. He winds up, so Sinatra's incapacitated. Jane is still pretending to be on an...
By the way, I'm so sorry. It's like,
Why am I recapping the show?
You are sane washing the show. Okay, in the spirit of the day.
Yeah.
Like, you have to understand that on this show, there is a massive, massive plot plank, which is that in recreating society to the best of their ability, they recreate a classic neighborhood diner that serves that classic dish that sucks, cheese fries.
Well, they don't have dairy.
Do they not? I don't think they don't have dairy. I think when they announce that the cheese is, can you believe it? It's cashew cheese, which barf. But they say they did that. I think it's
actually, you can make a pretty decent cashew cheese.
Get out of this podcast.
I'm just saying you can. I mean, like, I've had it.
You can make a pretty decent cashew puree, but just eat cheese or don't. That's my feeling about it. Okay. You can make a decent cashew cheese.
Did you have a lot of fun last night watching Trump's address? You worried about the dairy farmers? Is that what's going on?
Release the water. Feed the cows.
Feed the cashews.
Yeah, feed the cashews. The implication is that they've helped society so much, right? That they have made this somehow, it's vegan.
Yeah.
That's the implication. Not that they didn't have dairy, but really, it's all a misdirect to expose that the woman serving and snacking on the delicious cheese fries has a deadly nut allergy, or so she should have.
Yeah, right.
If she was really real Trent's wife, instead of a woman eating junk food outside of a...
We learned that because the town therapist breaks HIPAA and starts sharing all the confidential files with Robinson, the other Secret Service agent. It's just a lot of personal morality going on.
Since you clearly have retained all of the factual information of this show to a degree that I may have not.
Okay.
The thing that I'm wondering if they've really dwelt on is when they were making the list. Can you get into this?
The Versailles list.
The Versailles list.
Yeah.
It seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, there are a lot of like high priority people, like the cabinet, friends and family of the president, the billionaires and their friends and family. I assume some crucial people who can do things like surgery, like doctors and scientists who might help repopulate the earth. But then there does seem to be a rather large chunk of the population that's just there to like be a bartender or be a waitress. Now, I think that's nice if it was done with an egalitarian spirit, like society needs all its members to contribute to the best of their abilities. I'm sort of wondering, though, if I was drawing up the Versailles list, which I never should have been allowed to do.
No.
I feel like...
You'd be like Lane Johnson, Saquon Barkley, my kids.
In that order.
Joanna.
I think all the other podcasters first. Is that where you were going? Van, the whole Ringerverse, really.
Yeah.
They entertain me. You know, I'd find a way to get you in there.
Thanks, man.
False Trent. Welcome to The Watch. I'm Andy Greenwald. This is my longtime partner,
I
False
get away
Trent.
with being the fake librarian in your town.
Before you 3D printed another
welcome to my
gun.
library. We only have Lonesome Dove. And books about the fall of Saigon.
You would let me make mix CDs, though.
Yeah.
That would be a tell.
No, I'd just stand behind you and be like, I actually heard these guys 3 years ago.
I read about them on Stereo Gum. I do think that every single person in the town should probably be a nuclear physicist who unfortunately has to be a barback until needed. Do you know what I mean?
That would be really funny. Yeah.
But like, I think everyone should be the elite of the elite, like the greatest, biggest brained artists. And like Neil deGrasse Tyson should be there if needed, but he's just selling ice cream in the park. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I that would probably be my way of doing it.
I just want to ask you a question before we get off of Paradise.
Mm-hmm.
We've had this show and we've had Landman that I think both we've gotten a lot of just real joy out of.
Joy, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think it says about us that we're responding so, I don't know, not as necessarily always positively, but excitedly to this kind of stuff instead of Severance?
Oh, I was going to say Malala. Make America laugh again, Los Angeles. I'm just trying to make it work. Because these shows are fucking crazy and they're entertaining and they are, I mean, one, they're making us laugh and giving us stuff to make each other laugh with. Mm-hmm. They are also triggering parts of our creative cerebral cortex that just aren't always engaged with. Like, it's not just about solving rational, reasonable, complicated puzzles. It's also about just having a wild ride sometimes. And, a healthy.
Maybe we should change the watch to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
I love Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. You know what we should do, or what we could do, or would have been a good Tuesday column for me to have written at Grantland years ago, would have been the healthy TV pyramid, like a food pyramid of like
what
how
you
many
should have.
servings
Right.
of different things makes a healthy diet over the course of a week, because it does.
Well, we
affect
could just do that on the watch,
Joanna and I were talking about doing it for, just another project we're working on with our friend the librarian.
Called the pyramid fake trend.
It's weird the way his bald spot keeps growing back in. It's fine. No, but you know what I mean? Because I do think it does affect one's mood if you are over-indexing one type of show over another. And
yeah, I don't know if there's anything else like Severance on the air, though.
No, I didn't mean to listen. Severance does not need a drive-by from me on this podcast.
No. We can love who we want to love,
But I want to be clear, I don't think Paradise is quote-unquote good in the way that we talk about things being good or bad anymore. But I do think it is batshit crazy.
I think it's pretty good.
And it's pretty entertaining.
Yeah. And it's definitely got me thinking 2 times about tsunamis and waves, In
the ways that White Lotus didn't?
Yeah.
What sort of things are you thinking about tsunamis?
Well, I was just like, do I want to get to higher ground based on do I want to get...
You mean for this podcast, to Barack Obama's company?
No, like live in like a mountain, live on a mountain.
I don't like altitude.
Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about the Pit. All right, bud. Here we are.
Yep, we're back.
We're going to do the Pit. Do you have anything you'd like to discuss other than Paradise and the Pit? We save this stuff for the top of the show.
No, I just, that I am always, as established by the beginning of this podcast, I'm always just checking the transom, seeing what news are coming across my little ticker tape. And I did just see some pretty exciting news for you. This is a headline from Hollywood Reporter. Joe Russo says Robert Downey Jr. is researching and, quote, writing backstory for his Dr. Doom role. Quote, he is so dialed in.
Do you have to, does that mean reading comic books?
Researching is so interesting. Can you imagine him in the stacks, like the University of Texas Library?
Where's Victor's from? He's Hungarian?
Latveria. My family's from Hungary, so that's just the one slight difference. Yeah.
So you can't really do a lot of boots on the ground reporting from Latveria. Right?
No, you fly direct to Sokovia, and then you just drive south. It's fine.
Is it actually adjacent to Sokovia?
The beautiful
sort
thing
of
about this
Marvel Balkans kind of thing.
Lonely planet for that region in the Marvel universe. No, I you're so credulous about this stuff in a very sweet way. I feel like I could say anything right now, and you would believe it. I don't know how you research the role other than read comics. And what do you mean writing the backstory? Oh, are they? Unless they're just deviating from canon, which is its own thing. Aren't you glad that he's dialed in, though? You wouldn't want him to be phoning this performance in.
I have never really seen him not dialed. Like, that's his whole thing, is he's dialed.
He's super dialed.
I want the best for these guys. We didn't talk about Daredevil.
I haven't checked it out yet.
Yeah, I think I'm curious to see what you think. I don't know if it's going to be a big project for us.
Do you think I would have?
I think it's another one that seems like it's been stitched together.
Well, we'll cover it next week because when it was announced and they were going to do like broadcast network television, shout out Paradise, they were going to be like, this is a comedic legal thriller set in the Marvel universe. And they filmed some of it and they were like...
Wait, they said that about Daredevil?
Yes.
Wasn't that supposed to be She-Hulk was going to be a comedic legal thriller?
They doubled down.
Okay.
They were like, this is a space that's really working for us.
With She-Hulk.
Yeah, like Ally McBeal-esque.
What if Ally McBeal was blind?
Yeah. Keep going. Tell me you have my attention.
All right. I didn't have anything else for you because the only other thing I wanted to mention was that increasingly in television news or in TV just in general, I just feel like shows have much less lead time promo-wise than they used to. So it's not uncommon now to find out that Tom Hardy, Helen Mirren, and Pierce Brosnan are in a crime thriller directed and produced by Guy Ritchie.
Right.
That is airing on Paramount in 3 weeks.
There is something mercenary about the Paramount strategy, though, because we did kind of know about this. Wasn't this originally announced as like
this was a Ray Donovan spinoff or an extended Ray Donovan extended universe. Yeah. Now, I admit I did not go deep enough into Don to know
Radon.
Whether there was some United Kingdom connective tissue, some tentacles reaching across the Atlantic.
Sure, we have a special relationship.
But I think that this is one of those really interesting Hollywood development stories of this era where it's like, it started out and it was going to be this.
Yep.
And it was going to be a spin-off of that. And then they Guy Ritchie had enough pull and and was obviously able to pull the Tom Hardy lever hard enough to get him to do this, that it just became its own thing. It's called Mobland, which is, about the easiest title for a show you could ever make to make me want to watch
exactly.
it.
I was waiting for the hammer.
I could go for a slightly more elevated title. Maybe In the Land of the Mob.
Oh, that's nice. That's classy.
But
I like the loose suggestion that like everything is MCU now. Not in the sense that it's a shared Marvel universe, but that everything is just like, well, we're going to roll and then we'll just figure it out. But doesn't it strike you that like, is it an us problem or an industry problem that Paramount does seem to be existing? It's like everything. Let me start over. It's not everything is MCU. Everything is Sheridan-verse now.
Yeah.
Because it's just like when the Sheridan projects would get announced and it's like, oh, guess what? Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford are doing a TV show. We were still reeling, like doing our normal podcast calendar of like taking a couple weeks to be like, no way. That doesn't seem likely. That seems like a press release. And then it premiered like 6 days later. There's an element of that here.
Yeah, because this was essentially initially going to be a spinoff called The Donovans, and it was going to be obviously based on Ray Donovan, and it was going to be the origin story
of the Donovans.
Yeah, I'm just doing this off
So
Wikipedia.
This was going to be the 1923 of Ray Donovan.
And funnily enough, Helen Mirren is in both 1923 and the 1923 of but I don't think that this is a period piece. It was created by Ronan Bennett, who did Top Boy, which is why I'm like, this is something I'm very interested in. Guy Ritchie directed some of the episodes, and Mirren and Brosnan play the head of a crime family, and Tom Hardy is their enforcer. So I'm excited. That comes at the end of the month.
That's really wild. That's really soon.
Let's talk about The Pitt, though.
Yeah.
We have not spoken about the show for several weeks, which in Pitt time is about 4 or 5 hours.
Yep.
I look forward to watching the show every week.
More than anything else.
Even when it sounds like the characters are reading blog posts about their own characters to each other, it still does so much to move me, to excite me, to thrill me. I have really, really gotten into these characters. Like I've just really started to grow attached to these people, even though there's this compression happening.
Yeah.
I feel like we're on now
10,
episode 10 of 15. So we are at
the 2/3 mark.
Are we at 4 p.m.?
4 p.m.
Yeah, we're at
the
4
shift's
p.m.
almost over.
Yes. And I will say that I've seen a lot of things happen on television over the last couple of years. There's a lot of really breathtaking moments. The dinner from the bear, the big death on Succession, moments that you'll never forget. I'll never forget where I was when Dana got punched in the face on The Pitt.
We were all punched in the face in that moment.
Yeah.
That was devastating. And that was the act out of the episode.
Yeah.
That was actually the last.
At you dropping a little all right, Sean McVay.
Because
a little terminology.
They were in 12 personnel in front of the hospital. That was the last moment Kaya saw. We're about to spoil everything else for her. But
I'm sorry, Kaya. And I have to say that there's not a ton of spoilers in the next episode until sort of the last act of 4 p.m.
But let's focus on.
We're talking about 3:45 here.
Let's talk about the Dana thing. What this show has done with more efficiency and more speed than anything since the 90s, which is what the show was expressly designed to recreate. Apologies to the HBO Max Discovery lawyers who are having to defend that in court now, is just make us love people to our bones very, very quickly. The number of that guys and that gals on the show that I feel deeply, deeply emotionally connected to, like from the security chief to every nurse, is so intense.
Shout out Perla.
And so, love Perla. Perla went on a journey this episode. She couldn't handle the heat. Is so intense and such a wonderful, wonderful, familiar callback to the way we used to engage with TV. And so to bring it to this point where Dana, who is the constant through these first 9 hours, and is drawn so sharply and so quickly with so relatively few brushstrokes, because she doesn't get a lot of reps. She's just always there.
Yes.
And Catherine Lanasa is such a great performer and such a wonderful, warming presence that you feel like you know her better than you do. For her to be hit,
yes,
devastating.
by that guy.
The guy we all hate.
What's
and
his
by
name?
the way, Doug. Classic Doug.
Fuck that guy.
That guy, he got laid off from Tidal. He's having a heart event. You know,
he was working remotely in Pittsburgh.
He was working remotely in Pittsburgh. He could
get way more bang for his buck in real estate.
He was in charge of Hulu's live stream of the Oscars, and then had some sort of cardiac event, and he had to go to the ER.
There is a tension on this show, I think, that you can see as this season has gone on, of things that they definitely want to say about the contemporary current medical system, our hospitals, our insurance system, all these social critiques, all of which I tend to agree with, but you can feel it a little bit like we need to have a character here who is going to be like, why haven't I been seen yet? I could be having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And I will say, they did bring in an ankle sprain before they cleared the decks with this guy.
Well, I think they were actually playing favorites a little bit.
No.
You don't think?
No, I don't.
This guy's a monster. He was racist to what's his name, the beautiful boy.
Yeah, but Mateo. They would theoretically, like, you'd want to clear him faster. I know, like the silent heart attack. I've never heard of that before, so I don't know how silent it is.
I mean, I have them constantly, but usually I'm just worried. So I don't mind that they're giving him the slow treatment.
It happens every time you bed down for a transatlantic flight.
It's true. I have a lot. Weirdly, right before my trips, I tend to have heart attacks.
So yeah, Dana is obviously the angel of this show. Catherine Lanasa is so great, and she gets punched in the face really hard outside of the hospital by this fucking guy, Doug. So the episode sort of culminates with that.
I do want to. Can we talk about what you've alluded to twice?
Yeah.
So with this show, and it's good. It's actually a good episodic pairing for us to talk about this with Paradise, because we are getting the absolute highs and lows of the broadcast network experience, even though neither of these shows are actually on broadcast networks. But the Pitt is first and foremost beyond anything else. It is super entertaining. It is super emotionally engaging and endearing. And I'm not kidding. It is the show that I look forward to the most watching at the moment every week. It is capable of absolute staggering highs, like the episode where Robbie teaches people how to mourn, or seeing what happens to Dana and wondering what's going to happen next. It also does have scenes like you were talking about that feel like the stories I heard about shows that had to go into production when the writer's strike was happening, when they just had like notes. Because as soon as Dana is punched, suddenly there's like this Greek chorus of all the nurses just spouting Huffington Post facts about the state of violence in hospitals. And then poor, the woman who plays the hospital administrator, whose name is Michael, I forget her name. I should have it in front of me.
From The Wire. From
The Wire. And she plays, hold on, I'm going to get this right. Michael Hyatt is her name, and maybe it's pronounced Michelle, I'm sorry, but Gloria Underwood is the character. The most thankless part on contemporary television. She just swings in like a piñata at key moments for everyone to be like, this fucking guy. So for her to arrive just at that moment to literally be the straw administrator whose fault this is was incredible. But there is something, I keep wanting to say that it's unique, but it's not unique. It's just rare at this present time with TV that it can be the best and also the clunkiest, and it doesn't really take away from the experience of enjoying the show.
There's definitely something in the first sort of set of episodes that I think we talked about in detail about our relationship to the patients was deepened by the time spent with them, because they would go from being like, they just come in, now they're being attended to, but they're still like, are they going to recover? So it was not uncommon to have a case last over the course of 2.5, 3 episodes. I think that's gotten shortened a little bit. I think you sent me a message that I knew you were going to send about the drowned child.
So this is episode 8.
Yeah.
I was unable to complete watching this episode. I cannot do that. That was, and that's intentional. I mean,
I was able to, but I care a lot about pool safety. So
you used to be a lifeguard.
I know. I know.
You probably saw videos like this all the time to like impress upon you the importance of it. That was not possible for me to watch. But I guess kudos to the show for having, again, like just the breadth of story that it can do that.
Yeah.
And do the thing that these shows so brilliantly do and have been doing for 30 plus years, where you don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And the people who make the show know that the audience is on tenterhooks, and they know that they have a number of pathways available to them in terms of what type of story they want to tell and the effects they want it to have on the characters and audience.
I have no complaints about that plot line. I was very moved by it. I also found is it the episode after that where Collins and Dana kind of briefly hold hands in the room where they're talking about, like Robbie's talking about how difficult it is to like get over the kids dying. And then that speech gets interrupted by yet another crisis. It's always another crisis. I did want to ask you just like a practical question. What was going on with the child trafficking story, or the human trafficking storyline?
I like you like because
I'm legit like.
Here's the thing. I thought you were going to be like a practical question. As a parent, when your child goes into a medical situation, but instead you were like, Andy, if there's one thing you're passionate about, it's children,
trafficking.
Children trafficking, child trafficking. I think, well, a couple things. I think that the volume of cases on this show is a strength, and that they can just run through so many scenarios, so many possibilities. And I think that the answer to this is also part of the question you were asking about, like the question we were both asking about, like, the efficacy of the group of nurses just reciting facts.
Yes.
The show is very much written, and there have been stories like our guy Reggie Ugu wrote about this in the Times, like medical professionals have really championed the show.
The inbox for The Watch, which you can reach us at thewatch@spotify.com, is full of testimonials from people working in hospitals. One day we're going to have to just do kind of a compendium of them, but like of people being like, this is as real as it fucking
And also
gets.
I have kind of a rash on my back that I'd love to show them if they're available for like a back and forth. It's not itching, but it is. I did notice it.
Oh shit!
No, but I think that one of the reasons why they're responding to it is not just that like that's the correct amount of propofol to dose someone with. They're responding to the fact that like people don't understand. What? How much is that?
Yeah.
That they're not. That the show is actually showing the breadth of the job.
Yes.
That it is not just doing surgeries or administering people, checking things about them. It is also being the front line for social failings of this country, for crime, for things slipping through the cracks. And so that storyline was opaque in the sense that, is it leading to something? I mean, that's the other thing, right? That like if this was ER, everyone in the Michael Crichton estate, their ears perk up. That storyline where a young woman shows up with her boss.
With her pregnant boss, who is also answering all the questions about her medical care, which leads McKay, who's getting a little frayed, I think, over the course of the day.
She's a bit of an activist in there. That storyline would have paid off definitively.
Yes.
Over the course of 2 episodes or 3 episodes. Instead, what we get, and it might be all we get, and I think that that's one of the ways that the show is sort of conditioning us in how to watch it in future seasons, is that we may never know the answer to that. There may be.
I have a feeling we're going to have a very tempestuous last third of this show.
I mean, they are also
season,
but they're throwing a lot of stuff in the air, and we're not sure which are coming back to us. Like, is it the incel kid?
Is it Kill List Kid?
Is it the music festival that's going on? Is it that one, or is it something we don't even expect? So I think that the purpose of that storyline was to some degree to kind of muddy the waters or confuse you, but ultimately it was to land on the fact that, despite all of their goodwill, despite all of their very, very obvious suspicion, there wasn't anything they could do but give her a pen, which is very say anything of them.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Callback.
Yeah.
When this show first started, I think that the cases and the jargon and the sheer nerve-wracking tension of watching surgeries and watching all this stuff happen was the star of the show. And it is doing what I'd kind of hoped, which is that surely from spending 9-10 hours with these people, we have now started to like get more than just like, Santos seems like a real problem child here. Like these characters are now getting more and more fleshed out. You're getting McKay, you meet her ex, you meet
that seemed a bit far-fetched to me, but okay.
Yeah, but I think it was good to show both sides of that character at the same time.
Mhm.
It was cool to have her both like bantering with her ex and, getting kind of teased about that, but also calling the cops on the incel kid and also trying to delay the release of the woman she thinks is being trafficked.
She's across a lot.
She's really stressed out. Yeah.
And is she and Mateo? We think that's happening?
I don't know.
They're
She
just
seems like
pals?
she's still, what's her ex's name? Chad?
Cliff? Chad? Something like that.
I think it was Chad. I think she still seems to have a candle for him. This also comes into
I think Perla
play
knows.
with the arc of the Langdon character.
Yeah, we got to talk about this. So this is, again, it is kind of fun to have a show that is 15 hours. It's not 6. It's not 8. So the crescendo moments that we've come to expect rhythmically, that like 3 episodes in, something big might happen. Penultimate episode, something big happens, is thrown off a little bit. So so much stuff is being thrown at us that, like I said, we don't know what's going to come back down and what's going to land. I didn't have on my bingo card major cast upheaval in episode 10.
Yeah. So there's been a subplot to this season where Santos, the young Dr. Santos, who's basically on her first day, has been finding bottles of medicine that she thinks have been tampered with.
And there was something with like Louis' Librium was not the correct number of pills. There was a couple question marks
and
red flags.
Essentially, like she's starting to become suspicious now. Her suspicions are couched with the fact that Langdon is the only one who really seems to take deep offense to Trinity's cockiness and her, some of her behavioral stuff. But she's obviously like a very talented and intuitive doctor. And he seems to be really like going after her and also very aware that like other people are noticing this now. So as he gets increasingly paranoid, I think like, they've been putting out this breadcrumbs of the narrative over the course of the season that these two are on a collision course, but you're led to believe it's going to be more about workplace harassment, bullying, and or like these generational clashes that happen. And instead, it turns out that Langdon has been stealing benzos to wean himself off of painkillers that he had been taking for a back injury. And that
so he claims.
Doctor, so he claims. And it's a searing scene at the end of the most recent episode where Noah Wiley's character, Robbie, confronts Langdon. It's fucking awesome. Where he's just like, open this locker and like, don't make me make security come do it, and just kicks him out of the hospital. Sight unseen. Not sight unseen. He finds Librium. So I guess sight seen.
He sees it.
And the Langdon character immediately like kind of goes into defensive pleading,
bargaining
behavior. Yeah, like very, very obviously like trying to figure it out. Patrick Ball does a really good job in that. This is essentially like if you wanted to map it against ER, which I'm sure lawyers all over the world do not want us to do. Patrick Ball, his Dr. Langdon is essentially Doug Ross. He's like if Robbie is the Mark Green, Langdon is the attractive, younger, hotshot doctor bantering with Garcia all the time. And he kind of falls apart in the middle of the day. What'd you think of this?
So I think, as I have said many times, I love the show just unabashedly. I think that it was interesting to note, for all the balls that are in the air, they do lose track of them sometimes, or they are still figuring out the conceit that they've created in terms of the show being one day, hour to hour. I think that, as you said, there were breadcrumbs that was it. The drug storyline was something to be monitoring. If you look backwards, Langdon's behavior, especially in the last few hours,
it was like, I need to make some salmon tonight.
Or that you make rash decisions.
Yeah.
You have adopted a dog. You're an adrenaline junkie. You're a junkie. Like that stuff. The way that he yelled at Santos, those were telling spikes on the old EKG character meter.
Yeah.
That said, I think that it was kind of muffled and lost. Like there may be a number of authors of the slight miss, in my opinion, one of which is Patrick Ball's really, really good as a handsome, caring, and intuitive doctor. I'd never at any point in the 10 episodes we had bought that he had any edge to him whatsoever in any direction.
Yeah. I guess that makes it all the more surprising, right?
I guess it makes it surprising, but I think that there are pieces at play that they were interested in that, that are Doug Ross-esque, or we've seen in most other, maybe even, I was going to say more conventional, but let's just say other medical dramas, which is adrenaline, God complex, hero complex in characters. So giving him more variation so that the fall lands more, it doesn't just seem like another discharge from the hospital, I think would have been better. Now, it feels a little bit like greedy to be like, I love everything about this, and they're figuring out what could be a hit formula that works for years, and I wish it was better.
Yeah.
It also could be, we don't know. We don't know what the next few episodes will bring, and we don't know what the next few seasons will bring. It could be that the Langdon character was designed to be a misdirect, that we thought we were getting Doug Ross for the next 5 years, and it was a 10-episode
arc,
guest star arc.
Yeah, I could also see
and
like
that's it. And that also might be why, again, like the show has done a great job casting younger people, but if you go by Wikipedia, all the major actors have been in many other things, and Patrick Ball has not.
Right. Well, I would like to, I would like to see whether or not, I'm very curious to see how, like, what cast comes over from this season to the next season. I'm curious to see how far they say, like, we go ahead in time. Like, will season 2 of The Pitt take place 3 days after season 1, 2 months, a year? Like, when do they, within terms of the story, and whether or not he gets some sort of, I mean, can you come back from that? I don't actually know what the rules are with something like that.
Seems iffy, but also he was really doing a good job being a doctor. I mean, again, like I'm an armchair physician here, but just moments before, whatever
Should
those
more doctors take Librium.
I mean, I'm just saying he had a very steady hand when he was cutting the burned guy's skin off.
Would you be up for season 2 of The Pitt, Slow Tuesday?
Yes. It's such, I mean, the thing is and obviously the writer's room has probably already begun. They've thought about this, but like, how do you pick your day?
Right.
And not just like, do you pick
or is the truth of the matter
day?
There is no Slow Tuesday in emergency rooms?
I think that's definitely part of the truth of it. And there's never going to be a Slow Tuesday on the room where everything happens all the time. But like, what level of time jump will we see? A week, a month, 2 years? I mean, it's all in play. But I do think about the fact that, like, for as much of a slam dunk as, sorry everyone, sorry legal teams, making ER again with much of the team was.
It's just like every time like Casey Boys must be like
so mad. Sorry.
Yeah.
But they were making this up as they went along, and it was a leap of faith. Like the way they were filming it, the characters they had chosen, doing it in 24 style, and the resources.
What do you
to
mean
it.
making it up?
What I just mean is like they wrote, they conceived of, wrote, and shot and edited these 15 episodes. No one knew what was coming.
Right,
and there's a and all shows are like that to a degree, but like the confidence with which they're pulling off a lot of this really technical, high level, difficult stuff, story wise and technically, it's kind of amazing to me. There was no. If this had been a broadcast show in the 90s, they would not have had 15 episodes banked before they started.
Sure.
They would have had, 4 to 6 in various stages of production, and then they would have been getting feedback. They would have gotten early reviews. They could tweak if they needed to. And I think that it is a sign of like a very steady hand that they knew what this was. They knew what they had in Noah Wiley's performance and in his creative involvement across the board. I mean, Noah Wiley on the show, I think, is the performance of the year.
I just think I was going to say that the thing that blows my mind is that in the beginning of this episode, he's giving this tearful, eulogy, essentially, for, was that maybe?
That was the previous
episode. But in the course of 2 hours, he goes from giving a tearful eulogy for a young girl to angrily on the verge of tears, dismissing one of his lieutenants from...
And doing a medium story in the middle where he gets very angry and upset about McKay and her behavior with the cops, and then giving her a chance to fix the baseball kid's eye, and then saying, I didn't consider your point of view.
Yes.
It is an emotional modulation of a human that I think we all should aspire to.
Yeah.
But in terms of performance too, how is he tracking this? How is he tracking...
I hope we get a chance to talk to him about it.
I do too. I think he's just incredible on this.
We can wrap it up there. The Pitt, still awesome. Paradise... I'm a fan, man.
It's like TV's kind of back. Like this is a meat and potatoes TV episode for us, and that we are watching television shows and talking about them, and kicking and screaming. But I was willing to do it for you because you're my guy. But that, like, this is part of the healthy TV diet.
Yeah.
Shows like this, to have the thing that you're looking forward to.
I like this.
thing-
Don't stop giving it away for free. We're going to build the TV diet next
the
week.
pyramid.
I believe in us.
Next week.
Yeah, why not?
I got a lot going on.
Okay.
No, let's do it soon. I do like
On
the idea.
Monday, we will be back. We will have some reaction to the latest episode of White Lotus.
Yep.
And then we are going to be joined by a very special guest,
Yeah.
Danny McBride, back on the watch. And we're going to talk about the season premiere of Righteous Gemstones. I'm so excited to talk to Danny about this first episode.
I don't know if it's worth pretending it hasn't happened, because we will, unless people think we just decided to wear these clothes again.
Well, I said Danny McBride will be on the show with certainty because it's already happened. It was a great time hanging out with him. And I'm so excited for people to see the new season of Righteous Gemstones. Thank you to Kaya.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to CT.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to you.
No, thank you.
The sort of architect of the healthy TV pyramid.
Yes, the C. Everett Coop. The C. Everett Special Agent Cooper.
Is Coop canceled? Is he good?
I mean,
one of the Surgeon Generals had like a very weird last 3 innings of his life.
it may have been Coop only because he had a very weird facial hair thing. And I feel like...
Did you listen to Bill and Russillo on Sunday?
Not yet, no.
The first 20 minutes is just about facial hair
Oh.
and how their facial hair over the course of their lives often mirrored whatever was in fashion in baseball.
So they had like the Giambi? Like what did they...
It was like the lattice chin stuff, and then also like how
chin music.
sometimes sideburns came all the way down, but then we had like the Chipper Jones moment where we were going all the way up. We're going to see how far north sideburns could go.
I'm sorry, you said the first 30 minutes of their Sunday night podcast?
It was more like 15, 20, but it's beautiful.
That's
it's beautiful podcasting.
It's peak podcasting?
Yeah.
Now, if I no longer acknowledge the existence of the NBA, can I
just
still
want to say
listen?
Ryan Russillo is making a show unlike any other right now.
Yeah.
Ryan Russillo has recently done an episode about King Henry V.
Mm-hmm.
He recently had Les Claypool from Primus on his show.
What a king.
And is just talking about facial hair at the top of a podcast, 2-hour-long podcast about the NBA. He's the best.
Some lead, others follow.
That's right.
He is amazing.
Greenwald, great to see you. Talk to you on Monday.